We are on Daf Chavav Amud Aleph, 3 lines from the end of the middle width lines. Tana Rabban, Ha'adam b'shvua prat la'anas. This is a brisa. The Gemara is bringing a new brisa. Ha'adam who brings the pasuk. Let's see the pasuk. Nefesh ki shava levate b'svasayim laharai lahetiv l'chol ashiyavata adam b'shvua. Person who makes a shvua to speak with it, to express with his lips, to do bad or to do good. Whatever the person will express b'shvua in a shvua, when he forgets it, and he knows about it, and he's done wrong for one of these things. So this is the pasuk in Carbon Oila V'Yared. But we say if a person makes a Shavuos bitui, that he's going to be mechayev a Carbon Oila V'Yared. We always have to keep in mind. I mean, it doesn't really make a difference to us, but we should keep in mind that a lot of these things here that you're not going to be mechayev for a carbon, you're going to be mechayev still a malchus, alts the Shavuos bitui, and even if it's not a Shavuos bitui, it could still be a Shavuos shav. And the Shavuos would also get malchus, but just you're not going to bring this special carbon of a Carbon Oila V'Yared. So the Torah says, so the pasuk says, the man who makes a shvua, prat la'anas. This comes to exclude someone who's doing it entirely against his will, meaning he's honest. There's no way he could have anticipated, and he bears no responsibility. Because it says ha'adam b'shvua, the person who does it makes a shvua, and someone who didn't have any way of knowing that he was making a mistake, he's an honest. It's not considered that the adam, made the shvua. The brisa continues, v'nelem prat lemezid. Has to be that in order to bring the carbon Oila V'Yared, it has to be halam. It has to be that he's unaware that he's being over on his shvua. But if he does it b'mezid, prat lemezid. If he does it b'mezid, he's not going to be included in the Carbon Oila V'Yared. We saw earlier there was a Tana, Amanda Amar, who was chaylik on this, who says that you could bring the Carbon Oila V'Yared even on a mezid. Mimenu, shenis alma mimenu shvua. The pasuk says mimenu, right? It says nela mimenu. So we say shvua. I'm sorry. V'nela mimenu shenis alma mimenu shvua. Yachol. So the Gemara says, problem is, mimenu shenis alma mimenu shvua. The pasuk says, v'nela mimenu from him. That means it's talking about the shvua, that he forgot about the oath that he made. Yachol the shvua. Yachol shenis alma mimenu chayfetz. I might think, even if he forgot his shkaga, his being unaware, is not about what he said what he had committed himself to, but rather about what the shvua was about, the chayfetz that he swore about. Tamalaima b'shvua v'nelam. The Torah says b'shvua minelam. That's the sequence of the pasuk. Givata adam b'shvua v'nelam imenu. Al helam shvu chayav ene chayav al helam chayfetz. He's only mechayev for forgetting the Carbon Oila V'Yared, for forgetting about the shvua, but not for forgetting about the object, the subject that the shvua is referring to. The Gemara is going to explain what would be the example of forgetting about the shvua and remembering the chayfetz and vice versa. But we'll get back to that soon. Amamara adam b'shvua prat la'anas. The first thing we said in the brisa, this brisa that we just learned, ha'adam b'shvua prat la'anas. If it says that the person has to make the shvua, that excludes honest. It's not considered the person made the shvua. It happened by itself. Hechidami. What's the case? Because Rav Kahana Ravasi, like Rav Kahana Ravasi, kaimi mikambi de Rav. They were standing in front of Rav. Rav Amar Shuasa Dahachi Amar Rav. One of them said, between Rav Kahana and Ravasi, said they made a shvua that this is what their Rebbe Rav said. The other one said, no, it's the other way around. Rav said like this. Rav, when they came to Rav to educate between the two of them, he said, one of you is correct. He said, which one was correct? Amalei idach whoever it was that was between Rav Kahana and Rav Asi was found to be incorrect, said to him, does that mean that the shvur that I made, when I swore that I heard from Rav that this is what you said, and now you, Rav, are saying that it's not so, does that mean I was over on making a shvuas bitui, that I made a shvuas sheker? Amalei libcha anascha. No, that is not considered to be a shvua that you were over b'shgaga. This is an einus. You thought that you had heard me say, like, you thought that you had heard, that's what you remembered in your mind, what I had said. So you made a shvua that that's what you heard. And the fact that your memory failed you is an einus. It's very interesting. I guess maybe they were very young, maybe like 25. Because when you're 50 and you think that your memory is going to be 100%, yeah, I don't think you're an einus. I think you're omakarav lemezid. But the Gemara later on is going to ask if this is the case, right? So we understand how a person can not be an einus, where he makes a shvua, he's not going to do something. And it's not dependent on his memory. And then later on, he goes and he violates the shvua. So that's not an einus that he forgot his shvua. A shvua, the einus is if he forgot the thing that he made the shvua about, right? So let's say a person made a shvua that I'm not going to eat bread, and then he eats bread because he forgot the shvua. That's not an einus. That's a shaygig. But this way, if he did something, if he ate bread and he makes a shvua, I didn't eat bread, and he had forgotten, that's considered an einus. The Gemara later on is going to ask, how can you ever have, according to the Manda Amr, according to Rabbi Kiva, not like Rabbi Shmuel, that you can make a shvua on something that happened in the past? How are you ever going to have a shaygig that's not an einus? If it already happened and he forgot it, then that's l'chayr an einus. The Gemara is going to ask that question on the next number. But now we continue with the brisa. Now we're just quoting from the brisa. The brisa says "V'nela mimenu." That means that he forgot about the shvua. Maybe even if he forgot about not the shvua, but he forgot about the subject of the shvua. Since it says "V'nela mimenu," b'shvua v'nela, so you put the shvua together v'nela. That the halama is on the shvua and not on the chayvetz. Mechko elai b'marava. They laughed at him in Eretz Yisrael. Bishlama shvua mishkachas la b'loi chayvetz. I can understand how a person could have been unaware of his shvua or forgotten about his shvua without forgetting about the chayvetz. Going to Amar shvua shlo eichel paschitin. He made a shvua, I'm not going to eat wheat bread. Kasava sha'eichel or kasava sha'eichel kamar. And he remembers it that he said, not that he said shaloy eichel, but rather they said sha'eichel, that I will eat rather than I won't eat. The shvuasa inchi chef. In that case, he knows very well that he's eating paschita now, but he thought his shvua was that he's going to eat the paschita, and he thought he's even kaim the shvua, but he was mistaken about what his shvua was. That's a halama in the shvua. What does it mean that he doesn't? He remembers the shvua, but he forgets about the chayvetz. So what would you say? It's talking about where the opposite of this case. He made a shvua that he's not going to eat paschitin, the same shvua like before, and he remembers not that he forgot that he said loy eichel, but remembers eichel, which would be a helam in the shvua. But he forgot what he had said he was going to be aser in the shvua. He remembered now, kasava shel sa'irim. He thought he had said that he's going to aser himself from eating barley bread, but really he had said to aser wheat bread. The shvua sedaka le chefza inchi. Since he remembers the shvua, but he forgot about the subject that was referenced in the shvua. Sfekta Gemara, what does that mean? That's not really a halama in the object. Kiven the chefza in shilahu, since he forgot what the subject, what the shvua was referencing, hainu elam shvua. It's still part of the shvua. Even if the shvua has two parts. He says that I will do it or I won't do it, and then he says what it is that he's not going to do. But whichever part it is, it doesn't. Even if he forgot what it is he said he's going to do, that's still part of the shvuah. So it's a halama in the shvuah. So again, so still, what does it mean to have a helam where he remembers the shvuah, but it has a helam in the chayfetz? That we said that if he's in Sa'al Menu Chayvetz, that's not going to be a Shavuos B'iti. El Amar Elazar, Davida Achasi. Elazar Taka says, Ein Chanami, they're all one thing. That means that you're going to be chayiv on Achasi. Rashi says, Yata Moitza Helam Chayvetz B'Lehem Shvuah V'Zui Ein a Mishnah. Rashi says that it means that there's a mistake in the brisa. It can't be the case that there's a distinction between whether he made a mistake about what the shvuah is, whether the shvuah is saying positive or negative, whether you can do it or can't do it, or whether he made a mistake about what the subject, what the shvuah was discussing. Both of them are halamas of the shvuah. Maskefla Rabbi Yosef. So you're coming to the conclusion that there's no such thing as a halama of the shvuah, of the chayfetz without the shvuah, while he still remembers the shvuah. So he says, well, I'll tell you how you could find it. We said to make a shvuah that I'm not going to eat wheat bread. And he tried to fulfill his shvuah. He reached into the bin to take himself some barley bread, which he did not make any shvuah about, but also biyada shel chitin. And it came up in his hand, wheat bread, and he kusava sayrim, but he was mistaken about what he took out, ba'achla, and he ate it. The shvuah sadaker, he knows he's not allowed to eat wheat bread, but he made a mistake in the chayfetz. I mean, it was a helam. He was not aware that the thing that he's eating is not what he had made a shvuah about. So his halama over here is in the actual chayfetz. There's nothing that he's unaware about what he made the shvuah. His shvuah is firmly fixed in his mind, but he just made a mistake about what he was doing. Now, they ask, and it's a very strong question. This should be misasik. Generally, you're not chayiv for a misasik. If you, right? People always make the mistake. They think if you're trying to, let's say, to try and reach over to take a bottle of soda, and mistake your elbow hits a switch and turns it on. It's not a shayg. You don't bring a chatas for that. That's misasik. You weren't intending to do the action that you did, and generally you're not chayiv for it. In shuas also. So they ask why this wouldn't be misasik. But in any case, we're saying this is a shaygig in the chayfetz.
They could probably tell the difference between shaygig and eating bread.
What do you mean?
Looks different, smells different, feels different.
But it's a shaygig. He wasn't looking. It was dark. Whatever the case may be. We're talking about a case where he was genuinely made a mistake. If he should have known, he obviously made a mistake. We're talking about the shaykh. We're not talking about someone who did it for amazing. As it said, he didn't realize what came up in his hand. So this is a case of where he is aware of the shvuah, but he's unaware in the chayfetz. So why did you say that there's no such thing? Rashi says, the way the Rashi explains this, and then we have a Lishna Achrina which is explaining the same answer. Lishna Achrina, Amalei Abayla Rav Yosef, Saif, Carbon de Kamaisi, Allah the Haipas Mias Helam Shvuah. This that he's making, this carbon that he's bringing, it's because of this pass, because he forgot about the Shvuah. So let's see how Rashi says. Allah the Haipas, Sha'acha. The reason he has to bring a carbon is because of this actual bread that he ate, which turned out it was paschitin. The gabi dehai pas helam shvuhi. As far as this pas, when he's eating this pas, for him, he's forgotten his shvuah. Kasava shalei nishba shari savashi shal sayrim. It still comes down again to be a helam shvuah, because even though he knows what shvuah he made, but he thinks that this pas is not included in that Shavuot. So he's eating this pas, and he thinks that the Shavuot that he made doesn't apply to it. So in that sense, it still comes down, it boils down to being a Helam Shavuot. Right? The Gemara expressed it in two different ways.
I'm sure. I mean, he knows about the shul.
Okay, but he thinks this when he's eating this pas, he thinks the Shavuot doesn't apply to it. So in his mind, he's unaware. It doesn't mean he forgot. It means he's unaware that the Shavuot applies
To this
particular thing that he's eating. Right? So carbon the kamaisi Allah the haipas mi helam Shavuot. The carbon being brought for this pas that he's eating, that's a helam Shavuot. Okay. Or Lishnachrin, Amalei Abayla, says a carbon the kamaisi Allah the haipas mi helam Shavuot. Yeah, okay. My toughest biyad helam Shavuot. For Rav Yosef Amalach, Rav Yosef would answer back to him, Kivin the chiyadale the chitin who parish minei helam chaypetzu. Rav Yosef says the other way around. No, if you were to inform him, if you want to figure out where is his, what can you point to as his mistake? If you were to explain to him this chitin, that this pasta you're eating is chitin, it's not iron, he would be parish from it. He wouldn't eat it. So like we said, it's really just covering the same ground. The words that he said are firmly fixed in his mind, and his mistake is about what he's eating. So therefore, you have to say that the shkaga over here relates to why he's eating it. Had you told him, he wouldn't have eaten it. So you can't say now that he's eating it, he's eating something that he thinks the shua doesn't apply, so therefore it's a helam shua. But saif, what's causing it is that he's eating something that he made a mistake about what it is that he's eating. Okay, but in any case, but the Brisa had stated that you're only chayiv for a helem shvua, and you're not chayiv for a helem chayfetz. And then we have a problem. Our whole problem was, how do you have that case? So the first mandamer had said, Abaya had said, I'm sorry, not Abaya. The first mandamer had said you have to change the Brisa. But Rabbi Rabbi Yosef said no. We have to just figure out what the case is. But we'll accept it that there is such a halacha. You have to have a helam shvua, not a helam chayfetz. Helam zeh v'zeh biyadei mahu. What if a person made a mistake about both? Meaning he forgot both what shvua he made, and let's assume that this case that we're talking about, where he forgot he didn't realize which piece of bread he was eating. So he had a halama in the chayfetz. That means he made a shvua that he's not going to eat pas chitin. And now in his mind, he thinks he said a shvua that he's not going to eat pas kusmin. So, and in addition, he is eating now, he's taking a loaf of bread that he thinks is pas iron, and it really is pas chitin. So in his mind, first of all, he thinks it's not the shvua that he made, and second of all, the things that he's holding is not the object that he thinks it is. Now, Amalei Hari Helam Shua B'Yadei B'Chayev. Gemara says, he answers back. Listen, what we required is the Torah says Menela Hashvua V'Nelam. The Torah says you need to have a shvua should be Nelam Imenu, and that he has. So it should be satisfy the qualifications to be mechuyev a carbon oil yared. It's a shuas bita. He says you have to have a helam shvua. If he also has additional halamas, that is not ma'ilum yared. The halama of the chayfetz does not take away from it. So Gemara adarabay helam chayfetz v'yadayu pater says no. But we learned that the Torah says v'nelam shvua v'nelam, that tells you bedafka the halama shvua is chayv of carbon bita, but not a shvuas, not a halamas of the chayfetz. So that's a limit to tell you the halamas chayfetz is not chayiv. So maybe the fact that you did something, you had a halama that makes you not chayiv in a shvuas bita, even though you fulfilled the other qualifications, but this takes you out of the qualification to be a shvuas bita. Amar Rav Ashi, we had a similar type of mechanism as this Gemara earlier. Amar Rav Ashi, chazini machmas shvua kaparish, hare helam shvua biyadei. We go and see. If you tell him that, by the way, you made a shvua, your shvua is legabi the chitin. it wasn't about kusmin. So and he says, oh, then I can't eat it. Then you realize that that was what his main halam. That was his halam. And if you tell him that this thing that you're holding, it's not sa'ir and it's really chitin, and he stops, he says, I'm not going to eat it because of that. Then that's the thing that he's making a halam on. So this is very hard to understand what the havamin of this is. Amalei Ravina Lavashi, klum parish mishvua el mishum chevetz, klum parish chevetz el mishum shvua. How could you have, if we're talking about a case where he forgot both of them? So if you tell him that this is a sa'irim, and he's not going to be parish from it because he, in his recollection, he thinks he made a shvua about kusman. And if you tell him that your shvua was about chitin, and he thinks what he's holding is sa'irim, again, he's not going to be parish from it because he thinks that what I'm holding is sa'irim, so it's not relevant. So whichever it has to be that he's forgetting both of them in order for this question to be a valid question. So you're saying go see which one caused him to be pirish. He's not going to be pirish as long as either he's nelam either one of them. Elo loishna, which Rashi says loishna upater. Rashi says therefore it's not going to make a difference. He's going to be potter. He nems on like the second option that it must be. I think some of the other achronim ask about why does he pick the dafka potter. It's he says he's just accepting the question. Back to what we had discussed before. We said that it has to be Adam b'shvua. It has to be that the person made the shvua. It can't be an oinus. It can't be that he forgot the facts. Like we gave the example of Kahana Ravasi, that they forgot what one of them forgot what Rav had told them. That's considered an oinus. So I'm going to ask, so when are you ever going to have that someone makes a shvua and it's not as the facts were? We're not talking about a shvua shav. We're talking about someone who made a shvua about something that happened in the past and he forgot it. He's making a shaygig. How are you ever going to have such a thing? Right, we have a whole machlokes Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel about whether you could be over, whether there's a shuas bitul sha'avar. If we say that someone who forgot what happened, that's a einus, when are you ever going to have a case of shuas bitul about the past? Idi yada amazed. Who, if he knows what happened, then he's amazed. Idi lo yada, but if he forgot it, einusu. Amalei ba'aymi yadei ani sheshvu zu asura. He says, I know that for example, I said I'm not. I know that I ate the loaf of bread, and now when I'm making the shvua that is saying I didn't eat a loaf of bread, I know that I'm saying something that wasn't so. But he says I was a shaygig, I wasn't aware that you mechuyev a carbon on it. Oilav or not. Kaman, who is this? Like a mungabis. The Amar shiggas carbon shmoshgaga. He holds that being unaware of what the einish is for what you're doing is also considered a shkaga. If you remember, we said the nafkamina of why you have to know what all the different types of shuas are, whether it's a shuas bita, a shuas sheker, a shuas shav, is because when a person gives a hasra, when he gets a hasra, he has to say, this is the pasuk that you're violating, and this is what's going to happen to you. You have to say what the einish is. So we're saying that someone who's a shaygig and who didn't get the hasra, he's still considered that's enough to making a shaygig. That he didn't know what carbon he's going to bring, so that's considered, even though he's doing this entirely in every other way, he's amazing. It's like the Marafilu Temer Rabban. Gemara says, no, it doesn't have to be bedafka according to Mumbas, who says that the shiggas carbon is shma shkaga. Even could be according to the Rabban who say making a mistake about the carbon doesn't make you a shaygig. They should be mechuyev carbon. Ad kol big rabban alad mumbaz ela b'chol ha'Torah kula. The law of chedishu. That's in the rest of the Torah, where we say that someone who is over on something that's chayiv kares, you have to bring a carbon chatas. Aval chacha the chedishu. But over here, where it is a chedish, b'chol ha'Torah kula ashkan lav the maisi carbon. Over here, this is just a lav. There's no kares on a shvuas bitui, and even so, you bring a carbon. So even though b'chol ha'Torah kula you don't find such a carbon, Because why is it that b'derech klal you only bring a carbon for something that has a chiv karis? They afinu avodah zarah. By avodah zarah there's a chiv karis, and that's where we say you bring a carbon chatas. So everything else has to also be like that. But over here, the Torah said specifically, you bring the carbon oil of v'yored, even though there's no chiv karis on it. And over here, you do bring that carbon. Afilu rabbanon mighty. Even the rabbanon.
So usually the Rabbanan hold that you would bring a carbon. There's no such thing as a shigas carbon.
The point is, there's no such. There certainly is a thing as right. The Rabbanan hold there's no such thing as shigas carbon. The fact that you forgot what carbon you make would not cause you to bring a carbon. The Rabbanan would agree over here that if the person was shaygig on the carbon, he'll be potter, because they only argued on mumbas in the rest of the Torah, on the typical case of someone who's bringing a carbon on something that's chayiv karas. But over here, where it's a unique situation, where he's bringing a carbon because he forgot about a lav,
Yeah.
so that they would say that even shiggas carbon is enough to excuse you from bringing the carbon, to take you out of the carbon. The Rabbanan say shiggas carbon on
Isn't
a.
it the opposite? Mumbas holds that you do bring a shigas carbon. If you forgot that it's a carbon, right, then it's called a
I'm
shiggas,
sorry.
and you
Right,
would bring.
shiggas carbon shmoshkaga, right.
Right.
So the Rabbanan,
Yeah.
the Rabbanan would say in this case, shiggas carbon shma carbon.
Now, in all other cases, they hold that you wouldn't bring a carbon because it's a
Yeah.
lav chedushu.
It's essentially a mazid in the other cases. Right? The person
right. So
knows what he's doing, but he's forgotten that what the einish is. But that's in something that's a chiv karis.
it's back to that thing that we said that it's like if you forgot, every
Kapara.
tinic knows it. So then you.
Well,
We've had that novel concept for some
yeah.
of us that.
That is something that everyone knows exactly what each thing, right? That's what you're saying that. I remember when I said that last time, I noticed that we were all tinaikas in this regard. The same thing over here. Like we would definitely be off the hook for not knowing what carbon I have to bring. But maybe after we learn kachim, it won't be the case anymore. Zaktamar, boy mine ravina me rava. Nishba al kika umistakan Allah. Someone who made a shvua on a loaf of bread, and he said, I should make a shvua, I'm not going to eat this loaf of bread. It was like a woman who was pregnant, and she got a craving for that loaf of bread, and puts her into sakana if she's not going to eat it. Mao, what's the din? Saktamar mistaken l'shleimar. Said to him, what do you mean? If it's a sakana, you call out salah, and they call the rav. They'll say, stop asking questions. It's sakana, obviously cooked nefesh. You have to eat it. So that's not, you're not even going to be chayiv for violating your shvua, because you're mechayiv to eat it. Allah, I mean, and the like it's like going to see on the next amud, a mitzvah. If you make a shvua, if it's a mitzvah to be over on the shvua, that's not you're not being over on the shvua. Allah mitzvah va'achla b'shkaga b'shigga shvua mai. Rather, the case is talking about we're not someone who is mistaken that his life is threatened, but he's very bothered. He said I'm not going to eat this loaf of bread. And of course, the minute you say such a thing, all of a sudden the loaf of bread looks like the most delicious loaf of bread you ever saw. And he says, you know what, I can't hold out anymore. I'm eating the loaf of bread. And then he gets a phone call and he gets distracted. And as he's distracted, he eats the loaf of bread, forgetting that he even made the shvua. So he had already decided he was going to eat the loaf of bread, but he ended up eating it bishkaga without remembering his shvua. Amalei Tnina, he said it's a mishnah. Shav midiyasai maybe carbon al shigase. If he is bringing if he's forgetting his knowledge, his idea, his expecting not to eat the thing, then he brings a carbon for the shigah. Lo shavim midiyasai. But if he's not coming from that which he expected to not eat the thing or not to follow what the shvua was, and maybe carbon al shigase. You don't bring a carbon al shigase. So in this case also, he's precluded from bringing a carbon because it wasn't his intention from the beginning to to not eat this thing. So even though it ended up being a shaygig, that's not going to be a Shavuos, a violation of a Shavuos bitui that you bring a carbon oil of yard. Amar Shmuel, Gomer Melibai, Tzarech Sheyotzi B'Sfasim. If someone decided in his heart to make a shvua, it's not sufficient. He has to actually express it with his lips. The Torah says what he expresses with his lips, right? So he has to say it. It's not enough to think it. Meisvei bisvasayim v'loy b'leiv. The pasuk says with his lips and not with his heart, which so far sounds exactly like we just said. Gaman beliba minai. And then the Brisa continues. What if he decided something? He decided to take on himself something to make a shvua in his heart. How do you know that he's going to be chayiv? The Torah says with everything. The Torah is marba, everything, not just that which is which he expresses, but even what he was gama beliba. It's effective Mara. Well, you're asking from there, Gufa Kasha. The Brisa contradicted itself. First it says only what he expresses with his lips and not what he had in his heart. Then it continues and asks, how do you know even if he didn't say it? This is what the Brisa means. It has to be that he expressed it and not that he had decided to say it and he didn't say it. That means if once he has in mind that he intends to say it, then he has to say it. But it's not saying that if he just has it in mind, he just says in his heart, I'm accepting a shvuah on myself. That will work. But if he has in his heart, I'm going to say a shvuah, and then he gets interrupted before he could say it, or he forgot about it, that's not going to be a shvuah because he didn't fulfill his intentions. Then the Brisa continues. Gomer beliba stam. How do we know this thing that if he just was gomer beliba, but he didn't have intention to speak it, that would be a good Kabbalah shvuah? That's what we're marba b'chol masher yivata.
What it means to
To express, to say, yeah, move your lips.
So if he didn't say it, he just thought, okay,
So
how's that vivata?
because we're marba l'chol asher, you're saying. Because it's l'chol asher yivata, you can express it even without moving your lips. I hear what you're saying. You're saying that the words of the pasuk don't. Well, it's a rebate from the words l'chol. What is a l'chol? You're saying it should be l'chol asher yivata. It should be within an expression.
But
So maybe he expressed it in his heart, and if he all he expected to do was to express in his heart. And that's also an expression. Okay. Yeah,
definition of vivata.
Right. It's good. You're asking good. You're making a good point. But as a Gemara l'Shmuel kasha, but l'maisa in the end, this is Shver and Shmuel. Shmuel had said it as a general rule. So we're saying now we're coming out that you don't have to be ma'itzi b'svasav. Amar Rav Sheshes taretz ve'emahachi. So we'll explain it differently. When it says he has to be moitzi b'sasayim, it's not that he was gama b'liboy to say if he intended to say I want to make a shvua that I'm not going to eat paskitin, and by mistake he stumbled in his words and he said pas iron, barley bread. But gama b'liboy l'hoitzi paskitin v'hoitzi pastam minayin. But how do we know? The Brisa continues. What if he wanted to say l'hoitzi pas chitin? And instead he just said pas, without saying exactly which one. But he didn't say something that's incorrect from what he said. He just didn't say it as clearly, specify as clearly as it intended. How do we know that is included? So this is better according to, like this, that's why it was the one I didn't. He's saying that the truth is if you don't say anything, that's not going to be a shvua. What we're trying to say is, it depends. If you misstate, then it's not a shvua. But if you just don't delineate as clearly as you had intended, that's still going to be considered. That's what the kol is marba, kol sheyavata. You didn't say it so clearly. Meitze. Moitzi says Moisis vasecha tishma vasisa. The pasuk says legabe karbanos that which you express with your lips, you should watch and you should do it. You have to fulfill what you say. How do we know even if you decided to do it. Tamalema kol nediv leiv. The Torah says kol nediv leiv, legabe the bringing the trumas by the Mishkan. It says kol nediv leiv. It says what he decided to give in his heart. Once he was makabel in his heart to give something, he has to give it. So the same thing will apply by a carbon. If a person intended to bring to be makadish an animal to be a carbon, once he's going in his heart, it's valid. So the Gemara is saying, l'chayra, this is shver on Shmuel. You're saying that you can conclude something in your heart and it becomes enforceable. The Mashani Hasan Dosiv Kol Nediv Leiv. That's different. There's a pasuk that says specifically bring karbanis that it has to be once you're going to believe it, they have to fulfill. Let's learn out from there. One it says because there's two psukim. There's a pasuk legabe kodshim, legabe kaddish a carbon. There's also it says nediv leiv legabe donating to the building of the Mishkan. And since it says twice that once a person intends to donate, he has to follow through. It's shneik suvna bank echad. Whenever you have two psukim saying the same thing, you can't learn out from there to our case where a person made stam a shavua in his heart. Some people say you all can learn out. Over here we're talking about a shvua of chulin. You can't learn out chulin from kachim. It's not a valid way to learn, even if it would be possible to learn shneik suvna bank echad. Okay, we'll stop over here.
Thank you. Have a great day.